Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have to talk a little bit about Sony and another boneheaded decision that basically is going to have everybody calling them out on the carpet. The backlash from the physical media confrontation that they created is still resonating with the public, and now they have issued a gag order. So we need to talk about it. Here we go. But before we get started, just a quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K, so double check you're still subscribed. If not, click on the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Consider becoming a member, hit the thumbs up button, and also hit the bell icon and turn on all notifications. With all that done, let's dive into the story from That Park Place and author Trevor Denning. We've got Sony reportedly having a strict social media guideline around physical media backlash. Does this surprise anybody? Probably not. They are doing probably the worst thing they could do right now, drawing more attention to the terrible decision-making that they've had on this one. Again, you want to own your games. How do you own your games? Well, not through digital purchases. Sony just basically deleted 541 films from users' libraries that they quote-unquote purchased a license for. How do they get those films back? Well, they may have to sue. Let's jump again into that story. Sony is facing continued backlash over its decision to stop producing physical game discs. It appears that the company expected the pushback and reportedly imposed unusually strict social media guidelines for PlayStation employees, which makes a lot of sense. You kind of want to control the narrative in a situation like this where you know you're going to get ridden pretty hard, like your Paul Revere on a night telling you that the Redcoats are coming. Now, former Santa Monica studio writer Alanah Pearce discussed the reported restrictions in a YouTube video very recently on July 22nd. Pearce said that she learned about the guidelines from employees working at PlayStation's first-party studios. Wow, they're in the building. Although that's not too surprising. What is surprising is that PlayStation didn't realize this wasn't going to go away. And now, by restricting people from talking about it, well, they've created a Streisand effect, which means more people are going to talk about it, including people like me. And I don't normally talk about video games on this channel. I save that for That Game Place. But let me tell you, it's worth talking about now. People working at PlayStation first-party studios told her, according to her, that Sony had the strictest social media guidelines for this particular thing. Pearce explained that Sony regularly instructs employees about what they can publicly discuss, and they probably have the NDAs to support it. I was told under a lot of guidelines when I was working on God of War Laufey. I still am, and they did send me guidelines regarding what I could say on the day that the game was announced, she explained. Which makes sense because, let me tell you, that game was not well received, especially by male audiences like me. And look, this is a weird situation where I'm giving air to somebody who I may not agree with, or with somebody who was just doing their job. But it's a bad practice to restrict your employees from talking about something when everybody in the world is going to want to hear what they have to say. So she claimed that the rules surrounding the physical media controversy were stricter than anything her sources had previously encountered. But in this instance, it is apparently the strictest the employees I spoke to have ever seen regarding public communications. So Sony reportedly expected an enormous PR problem. Well, guess what? They're getting it, and they deserve it. Pearce believes the alleged restrictions demonstrate that Sony anticipated the announcement, no kidding, and it would create an enormous PR issue, which it did. The company has continued promoting PlayStation products on social media without directly addressing the growing criticism. And that's not going away anytime soon. We've seen it quite publicly on X, where they release one thing to promote something, and they get nuked from orbit by the people that are paying attention and telling Sony, don't do this, don't do this. This is something that's been going on now for nearly a month, considering it was announced all the way back on July 1st. It's going to discontinue physical disc production for new PlayStation games beginning in January of 2028, which gives us a whole other year. but the company attributed the decision to changing consumer preferences, which is a lie. Everybody knows that's a lie. Consumers want to own physical media that have the game actually on them. They don't want to own nothing and purchase a license. We're sick and tired of that model. In fact, we've been saying that we need to turn around and go back to physical on everything, or else maybe not support these companies anymore. You know how you hurt companies? With your wallet. Now, the games released before the deadline will remain unaffected, while existing PlayStation discs will continue to function. However, all new releases arriving after the cutoff are expected to be sold exclusively through digital storefronts. Do you think this is going to hurt the business? I think so. And the fact that Sony knew this was going to be a problem, put some strict guidelines in place, and basically told everybody to shush it, should tell you even more about what their future plans are. And they're more dire for us, to be fair. They don't want to produce discs anymore for films. They don't want to produce discs anymore for games. And they don't want anybody else doing it either. That's going to be a problem. And look, for people like me who appreciate getting a Steam game immediately, I can understand that. But at the same time, I want to buy console media that I can plug into any console at any time without being locked out of my media, which is another practice Sony has gone into of very recently, and I think people are upset by it. The decision immediately raised concerns about ownership, preservation, pricing, and consumer choice. The controversy intensified on the 24th when PlayStation Network suffered a global outage and you couldn't get to anything. Let me tell you something right now. I couldn't get to anything. I have a PS5, I have a PS4, I even have old PS3s. One of my friends is trying to get one of those, by the way. And I'm just going to tell you, I absolutely love them to death. But not being able to communicate with PlayStation Network locks me out of some of my titles. Is that fair? I don't think so. And I don't think anybody else would think it was fair either. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, who I despise with a burning passion, has come out in support of Sony because, hey, they don't want you to own your games either because they don't want you to compare the visuals that they produce now, which are ugly, especially when it comes to the ladies, versus what they used to do, which is beautiful and a little bit more risque, which they shy away from these days. Probably because they were harassing employees at their company before, and they're tired of being called on the table. But we think it will not disturb too much the industry. Yeah, that's a very French thing to say. Given Ubisoft's recent layoffs, falling stock value, delayed titles, and commercial disappointments, many gamers did not find his assurances particularly reassuring. Well, yeah, Ubisoft has been going downhill rather recklessly recently and are likely to impale themselves and hoist themselves on their own petard. It's quite possible anyway. So the physical media backlash has disrupted PlayStation's marketing, as I mentioned before. They had 11,000 comments on Marvel's Wolverine that basically had nothing to do with Wolverine the game. Essentially just nuking PlayStation's YouTube channel with commentary about what they were doing as bad faith with the gamers. Many of the most popular responses ignored the trailer itself and instead mocked Sony's decision to abandon discs. Well, I might have been one of those. Maybe you find me in there. But I'll just tell you this much. Sony's going to rue the day they did this. It's really going to hurt them long term. One viewer actually wrote as a comment, "Can't wait for my disc copy to come." Another commentator connected Wolverine's attempt to preserve a photograph in the trailer to a physical media debate, arguing that the scene demonstrated the importance of tangible possessions, which, look, Sony can't argue with. Sony can't keep the backlash contained just because they shut their employees up. It's not going to work for us. I mean, you saw what the results can be if you make claims about certain things that aren't accurate. I mean, the leaks that we've seen in recent days for films and the DMCA claims that came along with them are not holding water. And we've seen the recent leaks about games not holding water either. This is going to open these companies up to an abuse of rights situation, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. So unless Sony reverses course or directly addresses the concerns that everybody has right now, every new marketing campaign risks becoming another platform for gamers determined to keep physical media alive, to essentially, vent their spleen. And you know what? I think that's a good thing. How about you? Do you think that Sony should suffer all this backlash because they're trying to eliminate physical game media? Do you think you should be owning your games when you actually make a purchase in a store? Do you think you're really informed that you own a license to play the game, but you don't actually own the game? And what does ownership mean if that's actually what things turn out to be? I don't want to own nothing and be happy. I want to own things and be very happy. What about you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And you know what? Let Sony know as well. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just hopefully have some outrage for Sony.